Alright, so in order to create and edit lock screen images on Palm webOS, this will be for version 1.4 and probably below, because I know in 2.x and above they changed some of the locations. You're going to need to either have downloaded already a theme from someone on the boards, like the one that Tony Cipriani created, and extracted it to a folder wherein you'll get just these images here being screen lock, clock, numbers 0 through 9, and then a colon and a period. Or if you have the webOS Doctor image, you can right click on the jar file and using a program like 7-zip extract it, and you want to extract the user folder, the Palm folder. Under that you're really only interested in the sysmanager folder, and under there you're interested in the images folder, which will contain a lot of the UI images as well as the screen lock, clock, 0 through colon, and also the dashboard mask, which you really don't need to mess with in this case. Either way you do it, the numbers you want to edit are these files, or in the case of editing someone else's pre-existing theme, these files. For this case, I'm going to assume you have the file from Tony Cipriani, and so what you can do is take one of the images. As you can see, they're 50 by 80, 38 by 80, 49 by 80, 49 by 80. So I don't necessarily think the width is incredibly important. For my own case, I would probably keep them consistent so the spacing wouldn't be an issue, but that's probably something you can adjust after the case. It appears to be pretty consistent with 80 being the height though. So grab an image, open it up in whatever image editor you like using. For me, I like using paint.net. And you'll see you open the image as a layer. So here you are. This is your image. Now what I recommend doing is creating a new layer. In my case, it's Control-Shift-N to create a new layer. So now I have a new layer with the background layer that I can toggle on and off for spacing and alignment. So in my new layer, I'm going to open up the text brush or whatever it is in the program you have to be using, and I'll pick a font I like. Let's say I want to use a font I'm developing. So I'll grab that out of here, and I will say I'd like it to be white, just like the stock image, and 12 is probably way too small a font size. I'm thinking 48 pixels will probably fill it up just nicely. As you can see, it'll probably take up most of the frame. And this was the number 0. So I'll put the number 0 here in the frame, and as you can see, way too large a font size. So I'm going to have to drop that down to probably 36. And 36 with anti-aliasing is just about enough to fit on the screen. So now you can see in that same image, I have my font on top and the original 0 layer in the background that I'll just turn off for visibility. So I'd like to align this both centered horizontally and vertically, and I will be doing that for all the rest of the images, so there's a consistent alignment across the numbers. As you can see, the visibility is incredibly poor. Granted, the lock screen has a black background by default, so that shouldn't be an issue, but a drop shadow is a nice feature to add to a text file to increase legibility and also add a little bit of style. So I will probably do a object drop shadow. If you're using Photoshop or GIMP, that brush will likely be somewhere else. And once the file loads, I have my drop shadow controls. It's set to white right now, which is horrible for something that is a white font to begin with. So the offsets, widening radius, blur radius, all these things are basically up to your discretion how you choose to tweak it, what effect you want. I think the widening radius is a little too high, to be honest, and the blur radius may also be a little too high. So I'm going to drop those down to about 2 pixels, and maybe, I kind of like that this stands out a lot, 2 and 2. The offset, typically what's recommended is you have a top left origin for light. So right now my offset is 0 and 0, so I probably want to increase my Y offset to drop it below the image, and I want to increase my X offset to the right to drop it below and to the right. So it should look something like that. As you may have noticed, that now means that my drop shadow is going to be clipped off the right side of the image, so I'm going to have to pull that back or change the image size, either way. So I'm just going for a at zenith drop shadow, which means that my light source is coming in directly from the top center of the image, which is not perfect, but actually may somewhat line up with the stock webOS shadowing. So that's my new 0 image. I have the original background layer, you can see there. I'm just going to delete the original background layer, and I'm just going to save this file over it. And then going back to our folder here, you can now see that I have a 0, and then to repeat the rest of this process, you simply open the image again, create a new layer, take your text brush, drop in a 1. This is actually a lot thinner than the other one is, so that image was 50 by 80. So I think I'm going to increase my canvas and have everything be 50 by 80 because that seems to be about the right width for this font. Drop in a 1 again. I'm going to use my center both. Turn off the background there. I'm going to run my object drop shadow with the same parameters as before, and delete the original source layer, save that image back out, check my folder, and now I have consistent sizing and alignment for a 0, 1, and you repeat this process for the rest of the images. This is not perfect. I'd probably like to spend a little more time tweaking it, but this should give you a general idea of how you need to go about aligning and editing these fonts to create your own custom lock screen numbers. This process basically holds true for most of the other images within the webOS skinning world. Most of them are fairly easy to find. Some of them were overwritten by the ones in the Mojo framework folder, but that's something for a different tutorial. Alright, happy skinning.